Today I'll be going over the implications of emotional experience on memory. My research question is, how do emotional experience influence the accuracy and retention of memories over time? My outlines and claims I'll be going over today is: first, how does present emotions affect the memories from our past? Second, I'll be going over the different types of emotions that affect our memories. And third, I'll be going over emotional intensities and how it affects our memories. So the solutions that I had concluded was that because of how much emotional experience affect our memories and how our memories are often formed because of them, emotional experience heavily impacts our memories and how we recall them. So first, for my general background, I'm sure that we're all aware of what memories and emotional experience are, and I want to focus on exactly why memories are so important. According to Laney et al. 2025, they explain how the memory plays a huge role, for example, in the medical and legal system. For example, for the legal system, eyewitnesses rely heavily on memories. For cases like homicide or murder or even assault or rape, memories plays a huge role in trying to figure out if a defendant or a perpetrator is guilty or not. It also matters heavily in the medical field as well, because it helps your doctors or even your psychologists to figure out what's wrong with you or what kind of problems that you face. Now, moving on to my first claim about how present emotions can affect memories. According to Norwood 2022, they explained how that we remember what we want to remember. As people continue to age and as they continue to shorter burdens and responsibilities, they tend to reminisce about the past and think that the past was much more better than the present, which is typically wrong. They prove this by showing a social experience between children about how they would tell them to explain their breaks and separate them between the good and bad. And they figured out that over time their list of good things were continue to be staying the same, but their list of bad things were continuing to be shortened, proving that people tend to only remember the good things instead of the bad. The next point is how emotions influence the formations of memories. According to Tang et al. 2017, people tend to question exactly why does our emotions heavily influence our memories. Tang et al. Explains how that there's two key factors in our brain that causes this. There's the amygdala and the hippocampus. These two factors in our brains are key for our senses and also for our memories. The hippocampus is responsible for memory retention and also just making sure that we remember our memories. And the amygdala is responsible for senses like our emotions and also what we see in our lives. This is the reasons why the author explains why it's no surprise why our emotions and memories are so codependent on each other, because they both rely on each other on restoring our memories. Positive and negative emotions generates false memories. According to Josie et al. 2025, they explains how that usually positive emotions tend to generate false memories compared to negative emotions, and this relates back to the claim because it pretty much the whole article talks about how because of how feeling positive emotions at one certain time how feeling negative emotions at one certain point in time can make you remember positive emotions, but only the positive emotions in behind. This graph shows pretty much the amygdala and also forward the parahippocampal gyrus, and it shows how it gives an example of a person going through a bad day, pretty much being splashed by dirty water by a car, and it shows how the levels of the amygdala goes down to the negatives, pretty much symbolizing how negative emotions forms in our brains. And then we can see here how our memories retention goes up. Now, moving on to my second claim on how different types of emotions affects memories differently. So according to Kinsinger 2009, positive emotions causes more false memories. In an example of the fall of the Berlin Wall, they asked people exactly what they thought about it. People who thought that the fall of the Berlin Wall was good tend to have more vivid memories, but instead their accuracy of the event was more wrong compared to the people who thought it was a negative thing, where they didn't really have as much accurate memory, but they had more vivid memory, but they had more accuracy of what exactly happened during the time. And according to Cox et al. 23, going over how negative emotions have smaller rates of memory distortions, they explain how that negative emotions have a larger impact on your brain compared to neutral or positive emotions. Lentor 23 also goes into more detail how neutral memories gives a higher rate to produce false memories because of stronger emotions like positive or negative emotions having a bigger impact on individuals' brains instead of neutral emotions. This graph or this picture just symbolizes exactly how negative emotions have a higher rate of being remembered. And going on to my third claim about how emotional intensities have different effects on certain individuals, according to Dunsmore 2015, they go over a experiment going with electric volts, and they had a group of people going through them. They wanted to see if negative emotions like going through pain would help them memorize certain informations, and over a course of 24 hours to 6 weeks, they concluded that it did help them memorize certain pictures and items more efficiently. Now going over the Powell 2004 and how it connects with soldiers, is that soldiers usually go through intense emotional training and also intense emotional experience like wars, and this article talks about how the general was able to remember his friends dying in wars, and this is one of the reasons why he remembered, because of the emotional impact that it left on him. But Morgan et al. 2013 talks about how these types of emotional experience only affects certain individuals. Specifically, it only affects people who were really in the army, because in the army they explain how that they usually get trained to be resistant against propaganda, or just pretty much emotional propaganda. And they prove this because they gather a group of 200 military personnel, and they were able to conclude that they did not fall to propaganda when they were exposed to it. This picture just shows the different types of trainings and emotional trainings that they go through. So to go over the solutions again, I concluded that emotional experience do have a huge impact on the retention and accuracy of emotions. Although there are some special cases, positive and negative emotions cause an impact on emotions over time. The implication of solutions with finding out the solutions would have to be that it could help redefine therapy more, as I stated earlier. It can also implement stricter standards for testimony so that it wouldn't cause false trials and convictions, and it would push for more research, according to Lin et al., Mar et al. 21, and then Mortimer 2019. The cons that this would it would undermine survivors' testimonies, and also there is also inadequate funding. Some limitation of the solution is that there's also individual differences when comparing to the solutions. Different people can react to emotional experiences differently, so we can't really group them all together. And also during the research, there was a lot of outdated resources because of the lack of research. Conclusion is that we went over exactly how unreliable memories can be because of the emotional experience that they go through, the importance of how memories can be for medical and legal cases, and also how emotions cause false memories. These are my references.
Okay, how are you able to handle differing perspectives in order to come to a satisfactory conclusion?
So I wanted to find different perspectives with different jobs, and also just different emotions, and I was able to handle all these perspectives so that I could clearly answer the questions on how emotional experiences affected memories, based off like the science behind it, and also the types of jobs that can affect them.
Okay. And what additional questions came from your research? Why would those be important?
Some questions that came from my research would be exactly, were there like any other factors that plays into the science behind how emotional experiences goes into memories? Because the reason why this is important is because the brain is like really complex, and I only gave a few examples on why two parts of the brains impacted memories.
Okay.